Hi, my name is Wanja Michuki, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Soul Chats with Wanja. In today's episode, I'd like to talk about making your fears work for you as a leader. Leaders are usually held in very high esteem. They sort of stand on a pedestal, and even for the people around them, they can do no wrong, and displaying fear can be something that takes away from the trust that they've earned from those who are following them. But fear can actually be a very empowering tool or awareness for leaders to have. Why do I say this? What I've found is that when I'm afraid, when I'm thinking about making some sort of a decision and I'm afraid, then it's a sign that there's something I have to go through to get into a space that's completely new to me. In other words, it's an opportunity for change. It's a moment in time when I can embrace the fear. I can hold on to the fear and keep myself moving forward to discover what lies on the other side of that fear. If I hold myself back because of the fear, I find that things pass me by, opportunities pass me by, inspirations pass me by, and I never get to find out what was on the other side of that fear. But being afraid is a sign that you're about to do something that you haven't done before, and that's why you're afraid of it. So when we allow ourselves to go through this, to pass through the fear, it's not that the fear ever goes away. It's not as if every time we jump, it doesn't feel like we're jumping off of a cliff, out of a plane, doing something completely extraordinary. It doesn't mean that there's no fear. But what happens is that you become more accustomed to fear, to working with fear, to making decisions in spite of the fear. And the thing with fear, when it comes to acknowledging that we are fearful or afraid, it requires honesty to ourselves. It requires being vulnerable. So a lot of leaders feel that they can't be vulnerable. Before it would be the thing that would be, it was the domain of men. But I think even today with women, there is this sense that women have to be seen as steel rods, like extremely firm, fearless. And in doing so, they're stopped. It's almost as if, being fearless keeps you on this side of, this is the fear, it keeps you on this side of the fear and not going beyond it, not sort of embracing the fear, being able to say, look, this is a bit scary, we're trying something new, but it's worth trying this something new, because on the other side of it, we're going to discover something else. It could be part of a corporate strategy, if you're shifting from doing the same old, if you're taking on an initiative where you're changing the culture within an organization and not quite sure what that changed culture will necessarily look like. There's the difference between knowing that there's an opportunity to change the culture into something more positive or remaining the same. And the only thing that will keep you remaining the same is that fear of the change that will come about. And that change would be a change for everybody, including corporate leaders themselves. There may be old familiar ways in which you interact with your teams. In that culture change, respect might shift from being hierarchical respect to mutual respect. What does that mean? What is it that you might have to give up in order to acquire something far greater? If you're looking at a culture change where you can have more cohesive teams, where people bring more of their personalities to work, where people are more motivated to be there, what needs to be created for your teams to flourish inside of those conditions as opposed to what you currently have. You know, what's scary about that process? And this is where the honesty comes in. You know, it might be the honesty of saying, I'm scared that I won't be or seem to be as powerful as I am now. I'm scared that I may have to use some other way to enroll my teams other than control. You know, being a sort of the kind of leader that tells people what to do as opposed to being the kind of leader that enrolls people into doing what it is that they do, or the kind of leader who asks opinions of others and in so doing feels as if they're then giving up part of their responsibility as a leader. It kind of shifts the dynamics, and the courage comes in acknowledging that and going with that, and knowing that you are still leading your teams, but in a far healthier way. This is just but one example. You know, fear manifests itself in all aspects of our lives, but it's typically present when we're in the process of some kind of change. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear about your experience with fear. You know, how do you make your fear work for you? How do you express your fear? How do you share your fears with your teams? How do you acknowledge your fears within yourself? You know, do you make commitments to yourself? How do you keep yourself moving forward through fear? How do you cut through it? I would love to hear about your experiences. So please feel free to inbox me or share your comments down below. Let's get a conversation started. And this is for leaders. This is also for people who are moving into positions of leadership where you will be assuming new roles. You know, this is for much younger people who haven't yet assumed positions of leadership but want to and are thinking about this. What kind of courage, what's the type of courage that you need to, first of all, prove to yourself that you have, own it, and then display it as you move through your fear to the other side of what it is that you want, the change that you want to see and create. Thank you for joining me in this conversation in Soul Chats with Wanja. I look forward to chatting with you at the next one. And until then, in everything that you do, be bold. Bye for now.